Welcome to the Aaron Harber Show. My guest today, Michael Brune, the Executive Director of the Sierra Club. He's also the former Executive Director of the Rainforest Action Network, a former organizer for Greenpeace as well. Michael, thanks for joining me.
Hey Aaron, good to see you.
Great to have you on the show. So tell me a little bit, I mean, you've been heading up the Sierra Club for a while. Yeah. You're closing in on almost a decade, not quite, but yeah, we're getting there. Mm-hmm. How's it evolved since you've taken the leadership position?
Well, the Sierra Club's been around for 125 years this year, so it has a long-standing history, mostly of volunteer grassroots activism, working on a range of issues. I would say over the last 7 years, for as long as I've been at the Sierra Club, we've paid a particular focus, a particular emphasis on solutions, clean energy solutions, solutions to protect lands and wildlife, so that to help the environmental movement not only be oppositional, but more, as they say, propositional. How can we really help to bring about the world that we want? We've done that. We've started to do that. And then also the other thing that we're really working on is being a more inclusive movement, more inclusive organization at least, that's focused on equity. How can we address climate change while also helping to alleviate income inequality and alleviate some of the other injustices that our country is plagued by?
So one of the things I want to ask you and explore with you is the concept of what I call bold leadership. Yeah, and I'll give you an example. You mentioned climate change. So there are many organizations addressing in either a micro or even semi-macro way issues related to climate change, or trying to help people adapt, trying to address the levels of CO2 or greenhouse gases, et cetera. Yeah. And often these efforts affect hundreds of people. They may affect thousands of people. But as climate change is happening, the effects are going to be tsunami-like. Yes. And my argument is, or I would posit, that in many cases, the work of these groups is simply going to be wiped out entirely. And so my question is, why don't we have, and there are foundations and individuals who are concerned about this with billions of dollars. Yeah. There are people in political positions who have a lot of political capital. I don't see those entities with those kinds of either financial or political resources taking bold steps, providing bold leadership, and challenging what's going on in a serious way. Tell me if I'm wrong, and if what I'm saying is true. Why don't we see that? Why do people, why do groups, why do organizations, including the ones with great financial resources, seem to want to stay in a certain comfort zone?
Well, that's a tough question. So I would say that I agree that we need bold solutions. The threats of climate change are severe. They're already present. The consequences we're already witnessing, and it's only going to get worse. And the opportunity of addressing climate change is also enormous. And so that provides a lot of reasons for strong, principled, and aggressive action. So I agree with that. I also agree that if you look at most policymakers, much of the philanthropic community, a good part of civil society, they're more focused on substantive incremental change, helping to address how certain entities in our society are beginning to fight climate change. I don't think it's a completely lost cause by any means. You've seen Michael Bloomberg, former mayor of New York City, who has put more than $100 million into transitioning the United States off of coal completely, replacing coal with clean energy, clean renewable energy. You're seeing other investors like Tom Steyer and a few others who have taken pretty aggressive steps. The Sierra Club, we have, over the last several years, we've taken a strong position against coal and gas and nuclear power and oil, we're working to get off all dirty fuels. And we're putting an emphasis on 100% clean renewable energy at the city level, state level, and in the private sector. I think that both the challenges and opportunities inherent in climate change are so profound that we need a combination of things. We need some very tailored, very specific micro efforts that are designed to help a particular industry or a particular town or a particular region make progress, even if the progress is not sufficient. And we need also some bold actors who are willing to stretch what might seem possible at the same time.
All right, so let's Bloomberg, great example. Here's a guy who's worth, I don't know, $40 billion or some extraordinary number.
More than you and me.
Yeah, times multiples probably.
Sure.
And he's spending $100 million, which sounds like a lot, but I mean that's maybe 2 or 3% of his wealth. Yeah. At the same time, I think you would argue that the divide between what the public believes, and certainly the vast majority of the public believes climate change is happening, that it's serious, and it needs to be addressed. On the other hand, a lot of policymakers, especially on a certain side of the aisle, don't take that challenge as seriously as the public, or certainly as the vast majority of climate scientists do.
Sure.
And part of that, I would guess you would argue, is due to the fact that there's been a concerted public relations effort to undermine the credibility of the concerns about climate change. Is that a fair statement of what your perspective might be?
Meaning, are there certain actors who are trying to confuse the public debate?
Who not just are trying, but have been doing it for a number of years.
Absolutely. I mean, this is well documented that you've had the fossil fuel industry, executives within the fossil fuel industry, working with former communications professionals who formerly worked with the tobacco industry, specifically to manufacture confusion, to try to inject some uncertainty into what is now established, well established as fact. Climate change is real, humans have played a big role, and humans can play a huge role in helping to address the problem. So yeah, I do think it's not even really much of a debate anymore. There has been a systemic, decades-long effort to try to shift the debate from certainty towards one of confusion that we now see reflected in Donald Trump's tweets.
So with that in mind, I would argue that effort has had some very significant success, especially when it comes to policymaking in the United States. When you look at, of course, our new EPA administrator, Scott Pruitt, who's been a guest on the show, by the way, and the president himself, who clearly doesn't see climate change as an issue as significant as certainly most climate scientists do. So that effort has been successful. Why? And that effort has been successful because of the funding, I would argue, that has gone into it, among other things. The people who have had that success would argue because that they think they're factually correct, but that's another discussion. Why hasn't there been a Bloomberg or Steyer or whomever stepping up and putting in the resources to counter that effort at the same level that of the investment that had been made by what certainly climate scientists or the people on that side politically describe as deniers?
Well, they have. That's the short answer. So first, I would say the effort by the oil and gas and coal industries to confuse the public has only been partially successful. There's still a majority of Americans who believe that climate change, a strong majority who believe that climate change is real and that humans have a role in fighting it. A poll that was released a couple months ago from Yale University looked at the Paris Climate Agreement and found that there was a majority of Americans in every state who wanted the United States to stay within the Paris Climate Agreement. So yes, it's true that there has been an attempt to confuse the public. Yes, it's true that has had some effect. But we've largely won the debate. Most Americans believe that we really need to do more to address climate change. And I would say for the major philanthropists in this country, they have done a lot. Most of their efforts are focused on making actual changes. So the work that Bloomberg has done has helped to retire more than 250 coal plants and to have them be replaced by clean energy. The work that Tom Steyer and others have done have helped to support climate champions to get into elected office. The role of major foundations has been to help grow clean energy and show that clean energy doesn't just fight climate change and reduce air and water pollution, but it creates jobs and increased prosperity. So I would say that largely, with some exceptions, the philanthropic community has been very effective. The challenge is that we have a lot more to go. And it is true, I think, your basic assertion that there could be more donors who are entering into this space, and those who are giving could be even more generous than they currently are.
Well, I'm not arguing that people like Steyer or Bloomberg haven't done things in a significant manner. I'm arguing that they should be doing them at an order of magnitude greater. And when you look at, from a policy perspective, certainly when you look at the U.S. House, you're not going to see progress on climate change out of the House. When you look at the Senate, you're not going to see progress on climate change. And when you look at the White House, you're not going to see that as well. So I would say certainly if you're concerned about climate change, I would say politically and in terms of policy, we have regressed significantly in the last election cycle, and that we're going to see that regression at the minimum over the next next 4 years. So when we come back, I'd like to get your take on the Paris climate agreement and the fact that the United States doesn't want to participate in it, and what you think the impact of that is. So we'll be back with Mike Brune from the Sierra Club in just a moment.
Our perspective at the Sierra Club is that when clean energy is cheaper than dirty fuels, and we have an economic crisis in this country, and we have a climate crisis around the world, we should go for it. We should actually try to solve this problem and replace fossil fuels and nuclear power with clean energy as quickly as we can.
For information on how to help promote civil and mutually respectful discourse and support expansion of the distribution of our programs, please email info@harbertv.com.
I'm Aaron Harber, host of The Aaron Harber Show. You can follow the show on Twitter for instant notification of new episodes, live event invitations, outtakes, and behind-the-scene photos. And tweet us your topic and guest suggestions today. I'm Aaron Harber, host of The Aaron Harber Show. I very much would like to hear from you about the program, so please send me an email with your thoughts. You can suggest what topics I should cover, what guests I should invite to be on the show, or even what specific questions you would like me to ask. This is your program, so send your suggestions to aaron@harbertv.com. I promise to personally read every one, so email me today. And most of all, thanks for watching. I'm Aaron Harber, host of The Aaron Harber Show. Find us on Facebook to get all the latest updates, see behind-the-scene photos, and make comments and ask me questions. You can see episodes before their TV broadcast, so like the show today.
Join me and watch The Aaron Harber Show.
Watch The Aaron Harper Show.
Watch The Aaron Harber Show.
Watch The Aaron Harper Show.
Watch The Aaron Harber Show.
I'm Reverend Jesse Jackson. Watch The Aaron Harber Show and keep hope alive.
The Aaron Harber Show may be viewed 24/7 at no charge from any location in the world at www.harbertv.com.
Welcome back to the show. I'm with Mike Brune, the Executive Director of the Sierra Club here in the United States. So Mike, I'm really interested in your take on the President's decision to withdraw from the Paris Climate Agreement. What does that mean? What does it mean for the United States? What does it mean for the rest of the world? And what does it mean in terms of the battle to do something about climate change?
It's not good. There's no other way to put it, frankly. What the Paris Climate Agreement was an example, one of the few examples we have in society today, of just about every country in the world agreeing that there's a big problem, agreeing that there's an opportunity to solve that problem, and committing to work together on collective action. And anytime you get the United States, the European Union, China, India, Brazil, countries in South America and South Africa, all committing to work together to solve a problem, that's a great thing. And when you have on top of that, specifically, commitments from China and India, some of the fastest growing economies in the world, to cap their emissions and make big gains in clean energy growth, that changes markets. So what we also know about the Paris Climate Agreement is that it was significant, it was also symbolic, and it was simultaneously insufficient. It wouldn't have done enough to actually address the problem. So what we needed from our president was a commitment to stay in the Paris Climate Agreement and an additional commitment to strengthen it, make it even stronger, to invest even more aggressively in clean energy to both help share prosperity and address the climate challenge more effectively. The fact that Trump is pulling away won't help that effort. It'll be an abdication of leadership coming from the United States. It'll be an opportunity for other countries to step into the void, and it'll set back our efforts. I do think that the response since President Trump's announcement has been overwhelming. The amount of mayors and governors and CEOs saying that we're going to stay in the Paris Climate Agreement and we're going to make sure that the United States honors its commitments has been quite encouraging, and there's a lot there to build on. But the president dropped the ball on this, and we'll be feeling the effects of his poor leadership for decades to come.
Have you had a chance to talk with him about any of these issues?
We do not talk.
Okay, so much for improving communication. I guess anything. Do you tweet?
I do tweet, but we are not in close dialogue, the president and I.
Okay, I'm probably not terribly surprised by that. What should the president have done? And keep in mind, and I'd like you to talk about the fact that the agreement was non-binding. So given that it was non-binding, was there any, take his side for a second, if you can, was there any reason to withdraw from the agreement?
No. No. Here's the situation. What we know right now is that our economy in the 21st century is going to be based on clean energy because the fuel is delivered for free every day, the sun shines every day, the wind blows every day. Relying on clean energy creates more jobs than it does in the oil and coal and gas sectors, and over time it's going to save consumers money. So it cuts pollution, it grows the economy, and it provides more economic resiliency for communities and our country as a whole. So that is something to invest in more aggressively, more deeply. The fact that Trump is pulling away and is watering down our commitments internationally on climate change just reflects a poor economic analysis and a deeper loyalty to the fossil fuel industry than he has to the American public.
Now, in terms of the sun shining and the wind blowing, the sun doesn't shine every day, of course.
I've noticed.
The wind doesn't blow or blow enough every day.
This is true.
So are renewables alone really the answer, or does it make sense to keep some fossil fuels in the mix, such as natural gas?
Yeah, you will not find a credible individual who will say that we can go to 100% clean renewable energy by next Tuesday. Of course, it's going to take some time, and we're going to need to rely on some kind of traditional power, coal, oil, gas, or nuclear, depending on the actual use of the energy, for some time to come. Our perspective at the Sierra Club is that when clean energy is cheaper than dirty fuels, and we have an economic crisis in this country, and we have a climate crisis around the world, we should go for it. We should actually try to solve this problem and replace fossil fuels and nuclear power with clean energy as quickly as we can.
Talk about nuclear energy, because certainly when you're using nuclear energy, it's clean. I mean, there are no greenhouse gas emissions. There are other factors, obviously, but why not pursue nuclear energy as an option?
It's too expensive. Why would you pursue something that is an order of magnitude at least more expensive than solar and wind, in which the costs for nuclear power are on the rise when the costs for solar and wind and battery storage are on the decline? I understand those who are saying we need to protect our existing nuclear fleet as we get off of coal and as we get off of natural gas. Our perspective at the Sierra Club is that we have to transition off of all dirty fuels and accelerate the deployment of clean energy in state by state by state as quickly as we can. And to do that in a responsible way so that we're keeping rates low, keeping the lights on, and cutting pollution at the same time.
All right, how about the distribution of opportunities? Talk about two things in different states. I mean, obviously, when it comes to wind opportunities, when it comes to solar opportunities, they vary greatly state by state. Sure. How do we address that, number one? And also the challenges of the grid, where sometimes the best places to have wind energy, a wind farm, the best places to get energy from solar aren't connected to the grid or are not connected in a manner where you could really take advantage of those opportunities. Talk about that, both the distribution of opportunities on a state-by-state basis and how varied that is, and challenges with the grid.
Sure, and I can talk about it practically, not in theory, because what is happening in the United States right now, as well as internationally, is that depending on a state or a province or a particular region, that locality is investing in the resources that it has locally. So for example, in the Southwest, what we're seeing right now is that policymakers in California, Arizona, New Mexico are beginning to realize that solar comes in a lot cheaper than coal, certainly, nuclear power most definitely, but also natural gas. And so they're taking those resources offline, or certainly stopping the expansion of those resources, and they're bringing in more clean energy because it's cheaper and because it solves our environmental challenges. In places like the Great Plains states, we have obviously an enormous amount of wind. They're the Saudi Arabia of wind. And the prices there are even cheaper. And we can get a massive amount of wind coming online, provided that there's sufficient transmission capacity into major urban areas at the same time. On the East Coast, we have a combination of pretty high prices in the Northeast, where solar and wind, again, are a better bet. So generally speaking, what we want to do is to be intelligent, realize that this is a complex system, realize that this is a transition that has to happen aggressively and responsibly at the same time, and to make sure that we're doing this in the right way.
Should we have subsidies for wind or for solar? And also talk about environmentally the downside of each.
So first question, yeah, we certainly should have subsidies for wind and solar. These are providing goods to society. It's creating more jobs. It's promoting local entrepreneurship in both red states and blue states. It's helping to cut pollution. So those are investments that are smart for policymakers to pursue, as they have been for many years. Investments in dirty fuel industries are the ones that should be phased out, because these are ones that, even though they're helping to provide more energy could be provided more cheaply. You talked about the negative aspects of solar and wind.
What are some of the environmental downsides of solar and wind?
Well, so one big thing for both is siting and location. If you have a very large solar farm in the desert, whatever, it could be impacting endangered species. And so you've seen broad agreements between state and federal governments, at least under the last administration, along with environmental groups and the scientific community and developers, to restrict development to those areas that would have a lower impact on the environment. And the same thing is true with wind. Both the technology and a greater awareness of, say, bird migratory patterns has helped to cause a significant reduction in bird mortalities because of the siting and the operational changes that have been made.
And how about in terms of the cost as you look at wind and solar? What do you see looking ahead in the future? Do you see the continuation of the downward trend? Do you see it plateauing? What's your expectation?
Our expectation is that costs will continue to drop for wind and solar, but also for battery storage as well, and multiple kinds of storage. So this is the reason why we're so optimistic, and this is the reason why you're seeing literally more than 100 mayors who have made a commitment to 100% clean renewable energy over the last few years, because we see an economic opportunity as well as an environmental challenge that can be solved.
And last question before our last break, the grid. How do we meet the challenges of the grid so that we can take advantage of all those renewable resources?
Is to accept reality. We're moving from a system where we had big power plants located across the country, several hundred coal plants, more than 1,000 gas plants, nuclear plants across the country, towards one where we have tens of thousands of energy sources, wind farms, solar farms, panels up on rooftops and warehouses, battery storage, energy efficiency. So it's a much more complex grid, it's a much more interconnected grid, it's one that takes advantage of existing technology and emerging technology, and it's one that, if it's done right, can solve multiple problems.
All right, we're going to take our last break. We'll be back with Mike in just a moment.
What we're looking for at the Sierra Club is a whole-scale transformation, one in which workers in the coal industry will thrive, one in which workers in the oil and gas industries will find a place for themselves in a clean energy economy, and one in which we actually meet the challenges that are in front of us.
For information on how to help promote civil and mutually respectful discourse and support expansion of the distribution of our programs, please email info@harbertv.com.
I'm Aaron Harber, host of The Aaron Harber Show. You can follow the show on Twitter for instant notification of new episodes, live event invitations, outtakes, and behind-the-scene photos. And tweet us your topic and guest suggestions today. Hi, I'm Aaron Harber, host of The Aaron Harber Show. Because I've never done endorsements or commercials, people ask how are our programs funded, especially because we provide them as a public service to all our broadcast outlets. It's expensive to produce our show, whether we do them here in Denver or go to places such as Aspen, Washington, D.C., or even Iraq. The answer is we depend on contributions to support our work to bring you some of the nation's top opinion leaders. Individuals, businesses, foundations, and other nonprofits make tax-deductible contributions to the Democracy and Media Education Foundation to help allow us to continue to work for you. To find out more, to make a donation, just go to dmefd.org. The DMEF is a tax-exempt public charitable organization and has promised to dedicate 100% of every contribution to support our public affairs initiatives. If you believe as I do in the need for a forum which promotes civil discourse and mutually respectful discussion, I hope you'll decide to make a contribution today. I'm Aaron Harber, host of The Aaron Harber Show. Find us on Facebook to get all the latest updates, see behind-the-scene photos, and make comments and ask me questions. You can see episodes before their TV broadcast, so like the show today.
Join me and watch The Aaron Harber Show.
Watch the Aaron Harper Show.
Watch The Aaron Harber Show.
Watch the Aaron Harper Show.
Watch the Aaron Harper Show.
I'm Reverend Jesse Jackson. Watch the Aaron Harper Show and Keep Hope Alive.
The Aaron Harber Show may be viewed 24/7 at no charge from any location in the world at www.harbortv.com.
Welcome back to the show. We're with Michael Brune, who heads up the Sierra Club. We're wrapping up, and I apologize for having so little time. I'd really like your take on what the future looks like. I mean, we have technology now in the solar field with thin film you can put potentially so many solar opportunities on roofs across the entire country, commercial buildings, residential buildings. You have, obviously, wind farms are popping up all over the place. Battery storage seems to be on a trajectory where you're going to have extraordinary opportunities. What is kind of the energy of the future look like in the United States, say in 20 years?
In 20 years, we'll see increasingly communities being entirely powered by 100% clean, renewable energy, power without pollution. And we can construct this in a way that promotes more shared prosperity across the economy. We'll see millions of jobs be created in the solar industry, in the wind industry, in battery technology, advanced automotive electronics. We'll see continued innovations in all of these sectors. We'll see the cost of energy drop, and we'll see significant decreases in air and water and climate pollution, along with the associated health benefits from that. And I think, speaking even bigger, we'll recognize that we can actually solve our problems in this country. We are not incompetent as a species. We actually can use human will, human ingenuity, technological advancement, and a collaborative spirit to identify a problem, identify solutions, and move towards those solutions. I'm optimistic. I'm very optimistic about our ability to make this transition. The outstanding question is, will we have enough political leadership to make these transitions happen in the time that we have to make them?
Is it possible, in fact, isn't it highly likely that just due to market forces, these changes are going to occur, regardless of what political leadership there is?
I would say yes and no, or maybe no and yes. Yeah, the solar industry is going to grow, almost no matter what. The coal industry will continue to shrink, almost no matter what. We'll see gas face increasing challenges and finding it more difficult to compete with clean, renewable energy. And so the question is, will solar simply be a niche market? Will wind simply be a niche market, kind of like Whole Foods compared to Safeway across the country? Will we see a fundamental transformation in how energy is used in this country? Or will we see strong growth? Will we actually solve the problem of climate change? Or will we make some progress? Will we actually help to increase and to promote and create millions of jobs? Or will we have a couple good case studies to say here and there? What we're looking for at the Sierra Club is a whole-scale transformation, one in which workers in the coal industry will thrive, one in which workers in the oil and gas industries will find a place for themselves in a clean energy economy, and one in which we actually meet the challenges that are in front of us.
Mike, thanks so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
You bet. That was Michael Brune, the Executive Director of the Sierra Club here in the United States. I'm Aaron Harber. Thanks for watching.
Please contact us. We want to hear from you. And thanks for watching.